My name is Alexandra. I'm 32, fiercely independent, and pride myself on hard work and devotion to family. Picture this. Last year, I poured $26,000 of my own money into crafting the ultimate Dubai vacation for my parents and brother. But then, I got a call from my father. Out of nowhere, he tells me I'm no longer welcome on the trip I planned. Why? So he could bring my brother Michael's fiancee, Natalie, instead. But before we dive deeper, I want to hear from you. Where are you tuning in from? Drop a comment and don't forget to like and subscribe as I share my journey of reclaiming my self-worth amidst this family betrayal. To understand this gut-wrenching moment, let me take you into my world. I'm a senior financial manager at a top investment firm in Chicago. After a decade of grinding up the corporate ladder, I finally enjoy financial stability and just a taste of luxury. 3 years ago, I bought my own home. Last year, I paid off every single student loan. I've worked tirelessly to build my investment portfolio. This independence? It's everything to me. Now, let's talk about my family. My father, John, is 62, a retired military officer who rules our home like a strict platoon leader. His high expectations never seem to leave room for my aspirations. I always craved his approval, but it's something I've rarely felt. Then there's my mother, Diane, 60, the peacekeeper, the one who rarely speaks up against John. Her silence during family decisions often leaves me feeling invisible. Their traditional marriage reflects an old-school dynamic where John's word is final, and Diane quietly supports, even when she disagrees. And then, there's Michael. At 35, he's still wandering through life, never quite finding his footing. After dropping out of college twice, he jumps from one sales job to another, never staying long enough to settle in. So here I am, having fought for my financial independence, only to be tossed aside by the very family I tried to embrace. Can betrayal really come from those closest to us? The distant hum of city life outside muffles the ache in my chest. Was my independence not enough to earn respect? As I sip my untouched coffee, I know I must stand up for myself. This journey isn't just about family. It's about claiming my voice. And it's just beginning. Despite this, my parents, especially my father, have always treated him as the golden child. When we were growing up, Michael could do no wrong in their eyes. If he got C's in school, my father would praise him for passing. If I got all as except for one B, my father would question why I could not get a perfect report card. This pattern continued into adulthood. When Michael needed money to pay off his credit card debt after a spontaneous trip to Las Vegas with his friends, my parents dipped into their retirement savings to help him. When I needed a small loan to cover an unexpected medical bill during my first year out of college, my father lectured me about financial responsibility and told me to figure it out on my own. I did. I picked up extra shifts at the coffee shop where I worked and ate ramen noodles for a month to make ends meet. The disparity in how we were treated was clear, but I learned to accept it. I focused on building my own life and became financially independent as quickly as possible. I put myself through college and graduate school, taking out loans and working part-time jobs throughout. Meanwhile, my parents paid for Michael's multiple attempts at higher education, none of which he completed. Despite the uneven treatment, I have always remained close to my family. I visit my parents at least twice a month for Sunday dinners and call them regularly. I have tried to be the daughter they could be proud of, even if they rarely express that pride directly. As my career advanced and my financial situation improved, my parents began to see me as a resource. When their roof needed replacing 2 years ago, my father called to ask if I could help out. I contributed $8,000 toward the repairs. When Michael was between jobs last year, my mother hinted that he was struggling to make rent. I sent him $2,000, which he never acknowledged or thanked me for. It was around that time that Michael started dating Natalie. As Alexandra sat alone in her dimly lit apartment, the glow from her phone illuminated her weary face. She scrolled through old family group messages, the familiar banter tracing memories of better times. That's when her eyes landed on something unexpected, a forwarded thread. A message from Michael's fiancée, Natalie, dripped with casual malice. Questions about Alexandra's salary, vacation days, and a snide jab about finally getting into the trip echoed through her mind. The air felt heavy around her. Alexandra's heart sank. This wasn't mere exclusion. Natalie had orchestrated her isolation. The faint buzz of her phone intensified. Why did it always come back to this? Wasn't family supposed to uplift, not betray? Days turned into a whirlwind of conflict. Alexandra wrestled with her father, John, who upheld traditional values but failed to see the cracks growing within their family ties. He believed discipline was love, but could he not see how his strictness suffocated her? And Diane, her mother, and the peacekeeper stood torn, wanting harmony while witnessing the rift between her children. The whispers of discontent filled the air like the scent of rain, mingling with the rustling leaves of change. Then there was Michael, the favored son, so unsettled yet so often blindly supported. Did he even realize how deeply his actions cut Alexandra? It felt as if he was turning his back with every social media tick that preferred Natalie over her. As family gatherings became treacherous grounds for Alexandra, she sought validation in the shadows of indifference. Questions gnawed at her. Was her worth hidden behind them? Amidst the chaos, she steeled herself, vowing to reclaim her narrative. No longer would she simply exist in their shadow. She deserved respect, recognition, and love. In a pivotal moment, Alexandra confronted them. With shaky breath, she declared, "I am not just your daughter. I am my own person." The room fell silent. Her voice echoed against years of whispered insincerity and unnoticed achievements. But the path to earning respect and restoring familial bonds would be arduous. Would they hear her now? Would they finally recognize the strength in her resolve? The answer held the weight of her future. In this tale of resilience, betrayal, and the quest for self-worth, Alexandra's journey had just begun. Could she illuminate the fractures within her family, or would she remain the unrecognized heroine? Only time would reveal if she would reclaim her place in the heart of her own family. The golden afternoon light spilled into the kitchen, casting a warm glow as I watched Michael laugh at something Natalie said. Their voices blended with the hum of the fridge, creating a cozy atmosphere that felt anything but welcoming. My father, John, sat nearby, his eyes narrowed, scrutinizing every word. Meanwhile, my mother, Diane, wore a smile that lingered just a beat too long, as if she were trying to hold the piece together. An urge, equal parts desperation and hope, crystallized in my chest. The idea for the Dubai trip began to form, a spark of rebellion against the isolation Natalie had orchestrated. But before I could voice my thoughts, Natalie turned to my father with a question that silenced the room. Was this my moment to shine, or just another reminder that I was still on the outside looking in? I couldn't shake the feeling that Michael was oblivious to the tension. He was so wrapped up in his infatuation with Natalie, showering her with expensive gifts despite his shaky finances. When I gently probed about where the money was coming from, he deflected, changing the subject like a magician performing a trick. I suspected our parents were footing the bill, but I didn't want to rock the boat. I loved my brother, even if it felt like he was drifting further away. Despite the uneven treatment I'd received over the years, I still cared deeply for my family. I wanted to show them my appreciation, to create a moment that would bridge the growing divide. That's when the idea for the Dubai trip crystallized in my mind. While reviewing travel expense reports at work, I realized my parents' 40th wedding anniversary was approaching. 4 decades of marriage deserved a celebration, something extraordinary. They had never traveled outside the U.S. My father always claimed it was too expensive and complicated. My mother occasionally expressed a desire to see the world, but she never pushed. I wanted to give them an experience they would never forget. Dubai seemed perfect. Luxury, culture, architectural wonders, and desert adventures all in one place. I could picture them standing in front of the Burj Khalifa, or riding camels across the golden sands. Those photos would be treasures, memories that could heal the rifts between us. But would they accept my gift? Would they finally see me, not just as their daughter, but as someone worthy of their respect? The stakes were high, and the clock was ticking, and the weather would be ideal during their anniversary month, not too hot but warm enough to enjoy the beautiful beaches. I began researching immediately, spending my lunch breaks and evenings after work, mapping out the perfect itinerary. I wanted everything to be first class, a true once-in-a-lifetime experience. I looked into five-star hotels, private desert safaris, exclusive dining experiences, and VIP access to the top attractions. I also decided to include my brother in the trip. Despite our differences, he was their son too, and I knew they would want him there to celebrate this milestone with them. The total cost was staggering nearly $26,000 for the four of us. It would take almost all of my annual bonus and a significant portion of my savings, but I decided it was worth it. I set up a separate savings account and began putting money aside each month. I took on additional projects at work that offered performance bonuses. I cut back on my own expenses, making coffee at home instead of stopping at Starbucks, bringing lunch to work instead of eating out, and postponing the kitchen renovation I had been planning for my house. Over the course of 18 months, I methodically saved and planned. I worked with a high-end travel agency to book first-class Emirates flights. I reserved rooms at the Burj Al Arab, one of the most luxurious hotels in the world. I arranged for a private desert dinner experience complete with traditional entertainment, a guided tour of the Sheikh Zayed Grand Mosque in Abu Dhabi, a private yacht cruise around the Palm JRA, and VIP access to the observation deck of the Burj Khalifa. I even scheduled a private shopping experience at the Dubai Mall with a personal stylist. Each booking, each payment brought me joy as I imagined my parents experiencing these things for the first time. I pictured my mother's face as she stood at the top of the tallest building in the world. Soft candlelight danced across the gold-embossed invitations, casting warm glows over a lavish dinner spread. The air, rich with the scent of cinnamon and roast lamb, crackled with excitement and hope. Alexandra stood at the table, heart racing as she awaited her family's approval. She had poured her soul into crafting the ultimate anniversary gift, an extravagant trip to Dubai, a chance to bridge family gaps and bond in new ways. But then John's voice sliced through the warmth like a winter's chill. "Natalie is coming instead of you. She should see what kind of family she'll join." Alexandra's breath snagged on a fragile smile as shock cascaded through the room. How could this happen? The silverware clinked ominously, her parents' faces a blur of disbelief and silent consensus. As she fought to hold back tears, she glanced at Michael, whose eyes darted between his fiancée and his sister. Her heart ached with the weight of betrayal. Who was she, really, to them? Did they even see her effort, her love? Meanwhile, Diane, ever the peacekeeper, hovered in the background, torn between her husband's rigid expectations and her daughter's hopes. Why would they choose her? Alexandra whispered almost to herself. The rain gathered outside, its scent mingling with a sense of foreboding, mirroring the turmoil within her. She felt invisible, a ghost in her own family. Just as she began to spiral into a storm of resentment and self-doubt, a flicker of defiance ignited. No longer would she play the role of the forgotten daughter. She had sacrificed too much to be sidelined for someone else. "This was meant to be a family trip," she shot back, voice steady despite the tempest inside. "You can't just erase me like I don't matter." Diane shifted uncomfortably, feeling the strain of her husband's authoritarian grip against Alexandra's rising strength. Would she side with tradition or champion her child's resilience? In that moment, everything felt suspended, a crucial battle of wills. Would the family rally together, or would Alexandra's quest for validation lead her to a profound familial rift? As tension thickened in the air, doubt battled determination within Alexandra. Could she embrace her worth and carve out her place in the family? Conflict crackled like electricity, suspending the room in a tense silence. She took a deep breath, resolute, ready to fight for respect and recognition, ready to claim her rightful spot at the family table. The evening had transformed from celebration to a pivotal standoff, each family member a vital player in a narrative far more intricate than a simple anniversary trip. Alexandra knew one thing for certain. This was just the beginning of a battle for her self-worth, one that would redefine her family's bonds forever. The air was thick with the sweet aroma of freshly baked apple pie, transporting Alexandra back to cherished memories. She could see her mother, skillfully slicing apples, each piece cut with love and care. But those comforting sights felt distant now. The kitchen once buzzed with warmth and laughter. Now it felt frigid, echoing with tension and unspoken words. As the laughter around the table muted, the clatter of a fork shattered her nostalgic reverie. The family trip to Dubai loomed, a shimmering promise for some, but a painful reminder of exclusion for her. Why was she here? Alexandra's heart raced. Michael's fiancée, Natalie, had arrived uninvited, her smile seemingly sincere, yet her eyes flickered with envy as Michael excitedly shared details about the trip. "All those Instagram influencers are always posting from Dubai," Natalie gushed, her tone sharp with anticipation, craving the spotlight. Alexandra felt a pang. Had this newcomer come to take her place? With every question Natalie asked, the atmosphere crackled with scrutiny. "How long will you be there? Where will you shop?" The eagerness in Natalie's voice grated against Alexandra's determination. She couldn't shake off the feeling that each inquiry was a calculated move for a future of Instagram glory at her expense. When it was finally time to leave, Natalie's embrace felt suffocating. "You're so generous, Alexandra," she purred. "Michael is lucky to have a caring sister." But the insincerity hung in the air between them. As Alexandra drove home, shadows of doubt loomed. Was she truly valued in this family? Would her contributions mean anything, or would they always be overshadowed by someone new? In the quiet of her car, the rain began to fall, each drop tapping against the windshield like the unsettling thoughts racing through her mind. She felt lost, adrift in a family that didn't acknowledge her sacrifices. But deep within, a flicker of defiance sparked. She had to reclaim her place. No longer the forgotten daughter, Alexandra resolved to assert herself for respect and recognition. Would she rise to challenge the rising tide of self-doubt and fight for her family bonds? The night was just beginning, and so was her battle for belonging. In retrospect, I should have paid more attention to that feeling. It was the first sign of the trouble to come. 2 months before our scheduled departure to Dubai, Michael called with news that sent my heart racing. He and Natalie were engaged. He proposed during a weekend trip to Lake Michigan, presenting her with a diamond ring bought with money borrowed from our parents. "That's wonderful news, Michael," I said, forcing enthusiasm through my clenched teeth. "I'm happy for you both." "Thanks, sis," he replied, his excitement palpable. "We haven't set a date yet, but Natalie's already talking about venues and dresses. You know how women get about wedding planning." I let that comment slide, my mind racing with doubts. How had our parents reacted? "They're thrilled," he said. "Mom cried and Dad actually hugged me. Can you believe it? They're having us over for dinner this Sunday to celebrate. You'll come, right?" I agreed, though my heart was heavy. I wanted my brother to be happy, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Natalie was more interested in his family connections than in him. When Sunday arrived, I drove to my parents' house with a bottle of champagne as an engagement gift. It felt safe, traditional, yet not too personal. I wasn't ready to invest emotionally in a relationship I questioned. As I pulled into the driveway, the house buzzed with celebration. My mother had prepared an elaborate meal, and my father had bought flowers for the table. Michael and Natalie sat in the living room, accepting congratulations like royalty. Natalie was showing off her engagement ring, and my mother was oohing and ahhing, her excitement palpable. But as the evening wore on, I felt a growing unease. The laughter around the table muted, replaced by a heavy silence. I accidentally overheard my parents discussing last-minute details, not for the Dubai trip I thought I'd been excluded from, but for a secret family investment that Natalie was now involved in. My fork clattered against my plate, my heart pounding. I wasn't just left out of a vacation. I was being deliberately sidelined in the family's future plans. The air thickened with tension. I glanced at Michael, who was oblivious, lost in his world of engagement bliss. Natalie's smile felt like a dagger, her eyes glinting with ambition. "How long will you be there? Where will you shop?" she asked, her eagerness grating against my resolve. Each question felt like a calculated move, a step toward a future where I was nothing but a shadow. When it was finally time to leave, Natalie's embrace felt suffocating. "You're so generous, Alexandra," she purred, her voice dripping with insincerity. "Michael is lucky to have a caring sister." I forced a smile, but inside, I was crumbling. As I drove home, the rain began to fall, each drop tapping against the windshield like the unsettling thoughts racing through my mind. Was I truly valued in this family? Would my contributions ever mean anything? Or would they always be overshadowed by someone new? But deep within, a flicker of defiance sparked. I had to reclaim my place. No longer the forgotten daughter, I resolved to assert myself for respect and recognition. Would I rise to challenge the tide of self-doubt and fight for my family bonds? The night was just beginning, and so was my battle for belonging. Alexandra Natalie exclaimed when she saw me jumping up to embrace me. "I am so glad you could make it. Look at my ring. Is it not gorgeous?" Michael did so well. I admired the ring politely, noting that it was at least 2 carats and likely well beyond what Michael could afford on his own. My suspicions about my parents' financial involvement were essentially confirmed when I noticed my mother wearing costume jewelry instead of her usual gold pieces. She had likely pawned some of her jewelry to help Michael buy the ring. During dinner, the conversation inevitably turned to the upcoming Dubai trip, which was now just 8 weeks away. Natalie leaned forward eagerly as my mother discussed what clothes she planned to pack. "I have been researching Dubai fashion," Natalie interjected. "For the desert safari, you will want to wear light layers because it gets cold at night, and for the Burj Al Arab, we should definitely dress up." I was thinking of wearing my new red dress, the one with the gold accents. Her casual use of "we" set off immediate alarm bells. I glanced at Michael, who was studiously avoiding eye contact with me. My father was nodding along as Natalie spoke, seemingly unbothered by her presumption. I cleared my throat. "Natalie, I'm not sure if Michael explained, but the trip is for our parents' anniversary. I have made reservations for 4 people. My parents, Michael, and myself." A heavy silence fell over the table. Natalie's smile froze on her face, though her eyes narrowed slightly. My father set down his fork with a deliberate motion that I recognized from childhood as a warning sign. "Alexandra," he said slowly, "now that Michael and Natalie are engaged, do not you think it would be appropriate to include her in our family celebration?" My stomach tightened. "Dad, I would love to include Natalie, but the trip has been planned and paid for with 4 people in mind. All the reservations, the hotel rooms, the private tours, everything is arranged for 4. Adding a 5th person at this stage would be complicated and expensive." "Surely, you could make some adjustments," my father pressed. "Natalie is going to be part of our family now." My mother, who had been silent until now, tentatively spoke up. "The trip is Alexandra's gift to us, John. She has put a lot of thought and money into planning it." I shot her a grateful look, but my father waved away her comment. "Alexandra is doing very well in her career. I am sure the additional cost would not be a burden for her." Michael finally looked up from his plate. "Natalie has never been out of the country before. She does not even have a passport yet, but we are expediting it. This would be such an amazing first international experience for her." Natalie reached over and squeezed my father's hand. I would never want to impose John. It is just that Michael has told me so much about this trip, and it sounds like such a special family time. I would love to be included, but I completely understand if it is not possible. Her tone was conciliatory, but her expression conveyed a different message entirely. I took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. The issue is not just the additional cost, though. That is certainly a factor. The Burj Al Arab suites I reserved are configured for specific numbers of guests. The desert dinner experience is a private booking for 4. The first-class airfare alone for another person would be over $5,000 at this point, and that is if we can even get a seat on the same flights. So you are saying no. My father's tone had an edge to it that I recognized all too well. I am saying it would be very difficult to change everything at this point. I clarified maybe Natalie and Michael can plan their own trip to Dubai after the wedding. I would be happy to share my research and recommendations. That is very generous of you, Alexander. As Alexandra closed the heavy front door, her phone buzzed. A message from Natalie, not her brother. The text glowed on the screen. I know what you sacrificed for Michael. You should have been the one celebrated tonight. If you want the truth, meet me tomorrow. The chill of the evening suddenly bit deeper, tension replaced by a prickling curiosity and anger as Alexandra realized Natalie was nowhere near as oblivious as she'd pretended to be. Dinner had been a battlefield. The air was thick with unspoken words, the scent of rain mingling with the tension. Family should be together for important celebrations, her father declared, his voice booming with authority. But the irony of his sudden emphasis on family togetherness, especially when it benefited Natalie, stung. Alexandra bit her tongue, suppressing the urge to confront the decades of favoritism that had shaped her family dynamics. Let me look into the options, she conceded, though her heart screamed against the idea of spending thousands more to include someone she suspected was using her brother and parents for her own gain. The rest of dinner felt like walking on eggshells, each bite heavy with unexpressed resentment. When it was time to leave, her father's serious expression weighed on her. Alexandra, I hope you will make the right decision about this trip, he said, his tone leaving no room for interpretation. I will do my best, Dad, she replied, her voice steady but her heart racing. Driving home, dread settled over her like a thick fog. This was far from over. A month before their scheduled departure to Dubai, her father called, his voice unusually careful. We need to talk about the trip, he said. Can you come by around 6 tonight? Arriving at her parents' house, a sense of foreboding washed over her. Her mother opened the door, barely meeting her eyes. The silence screamed louder than any argument could. What was brewing beneath the surface? Would this conversation shatter the fragile peace, or would it reveal the truth that had been lurking in the shadows? As Alexandra stepped inside, she braced herself for the storm that was about to unfold. In the living room, my father sat in his favorite armchair, his posture rigid. Michael was on the couch, and beside him, looking surprisingly comfortable for someone who should have been a guest in this situation, sat Natalie. Alexandra, have a seat, my father said, gesturing to the lone chair across from him, positioned in a way that made me feel like I was about to face a firing squad. I sat down, my heart already racing. What is going on? My father cleared his throat. We have been doing some thinking about the Dubai trip, and we have made a decision. The use of... We did not escape my notice. This was supposedly my gift to them, yet they were making decisions without me. Your mother and I believe that since Natalie is going to be joining our family, this anniversary trip would be a perfect opportunity for us all to bond and create memories together. I nodded slowly, having expected this. As I mentioned before, adding another person to the reservations would be complicated, but not impossible. If you all feel strongly about it, I can look into the additional costs and see what changes need to be made. That is not quite what we had in mind, my father continued, looking uncomfortable for the first time. Given the limitations you mentioned about the reservations being for 4 people, we think the most sensible solution is for Natalie to take your place on the trip. The words hit me like a physical blow. I stared at my father, certain I had misheard him. Excuse me, it makes the most sense. He pressed on his voice, taking on the authoritative tone he used when he expected no argument. You have traveled internationally before. Natalie never has. This would be a new experience for her, whereas for you, it would just be another trip. I felt as though all the air had been sucked from the room. My mother was staring at her hands, twisting her wedding ring around her finger. Michael had the decency to look somewhat ashamed, though not enough to speak up on my behalf. Natalie sat with a slight smile, playing at her lips, her expression one of poorly concealed triumph. Dad, I finally managed my voice barely above a whisper. I paid for this trip. I planned every detail. This was my gift to you and Mom for your anniversary, and we appreciate that, he replied quickly. But gifts once given belong to the recipient. Your mother and I would like to share this experience with our son and his future wife. The casual cruelty of his statement left me breathless. I looked to my mother, hoping for support, but she remained silent, her eyes downcast. Natalie deserves to go more than you do, my father added, delivering the most painful blow yet. She is about to become part of this family. This trip would mean so much more to her than it would to you. I felt tears pricking at my eyes but refused to let them fall. I have been planning this for over a year and a half. I worked extra hours, gave up my own vacation plans, and spent nearly $26,000 to create this experience for our family. And we will pay you back for your portion, my father said dismissively, as if that addressed the core issue. Michael has calculated that your share would be around $6,000. We can write you a check right now. I laughed incredulously. $6,000. Dad, the first-class airfare alone is more than that per person, not to mention the hotel suites, the private tours, the special experiences I arranged. Michael finally spoke up. Alex, do not be selfish about this. Family helps family. You know, Natalie and I cannot afford a trip like this on our own. You have a great job and can go to Dubai anytime you want. Selfish, I repeated, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. I spent my own money I worked hard for to give our parents a special anniversary gift. How exactly does that make me selfish? It is selfish to deny Natalie this opportunity just because you want to go, Michael shot back. You always have to be the center of attention, do not you? The air was thick with honeysuckle and the weight of old grievances as Alexandra stood on the porch at dusk. At 12, she clutched her report card, the paper crinkling under the pressure of her trembling hands. She could hear the distant, raucous laughter of her father and brother, their approval echoing like a cruel reminder. Diane, her mother, caught her gaze, silently apologizing with a fleeting gesture toward the house. The kitchen was a sanctuary, filled with the comforting scents of fresh coffee and polished wood. But tonight, it felt like a prison. Alexandra hesitated at the door, a spectator in her own home, always watching, clawing for a place amongst them. As the emotional storm swirled inside her, Alexandra faced the harsh reality of family betrayal head-on. I paid for this trip, she managed to say, her voice barely breaking through the rising tide of anger. I planned every detail. But her father's response was a quick dismissal. Gifts, once given, belong to the recipient. His words felt like a dagger, slicing through years of unacknowledged sacrifice. Natalie deserves to go more than you do, he added, filling the room with a suffocating silence. Tears threatened to spill as she sought her mother's support, but Diane's eyes were cast downward, silent in her complicity. And just like that, Natalie, Michael's fiancée, interjected in a voice dripping with faux appreciation. "This means so much to me," she said. Her wide-eyed sincerity felt like a slap in the face. Alexandra could see the smug satisfaction barely concealed beneath Natalie's mask of gratitude. Yet the deeper wound lay in Michael, the brother who, despite his own struggles, had chosen to align himself with their father's injustice. "You always have to be the center of attention, don't you?" he accused, igniting the sparking rage inside her. Hypocrite, she thought, feeling her heart race, after years of quiet support, now criticized for wanting to stand tall. "I've never shown off," she fired back, but her father cut her off, asserting with authority, "Our decision is final." There it was again, the unfair hierarchy of love that always favored Michael. Standing tall, Alexandra realized they wouldn't silence her this time. "This isn't just a simple problem you've created," she shot back, her voice steady. "The real issue is how you've always valued him over me. I'm done being the invisible one." The finale of unreciprocated love was echoed in every heartbeat, every breath. As she left the home where she felt unwanted, the fragrant scents of honeysuckle mixed with the bittersweet taste of determination. "I hope you all enjoy the trip. It's a gift, after all," she whispered to herself, each word a promise to break free from family expectations and embrace her own worth. The storm raged outside, rain tapping a frantic rhythm on the windshield as Alexandra gripped the steering wheel, every muscle tense. The scent of damp earth filtered in through the open window, a reminder of the turmoil brewing inside her. Behind her, the porch light flickered like her wavering hope. Were they coming after her? Or had they already chosen to turn away? She felt small and alone, crushed under the weight of unspoken words and broken trust. "I am part of this family too," she confronted them, her voice nearly drowned by the storm within. "Yet here I am, being pushed aside the moment someone new shows up." Her father's expression froze, hard as stone. "That is enough. You will not speak to me this way in my own home." "Fine," she shot back, swinging her purse over her shoulder. "Then I will leave." Just as she reached for the door, Natalie's voice pierced the tension. "Alexandra, please don't leave angry. We're going to be sisters soon. I'd hate for this to come between us." Turning slowly, Alexandra met Natalie's gaze, a mix of false innocence and hidden glee. "You know what, Natalie? We're not sisters. You may marry my brother and have my parents' approval, but you and I will never be family after this." With a firm push, she closed the door behind her, cutting off the warmth of the home that had never felt like hers. Once alone in her car, the tears flooded, each sob deeper than the last. She felt the betrayal sting, not just from her father, who had always favored Michael, but from Diane, her mother, who pretended to love them equally. And Michael, her own brother, the one who should have understood. The pain was unbearable, like an anchor in her chest dragging her down. Yet, with every mile she drove, rage ignited within her. She spent thousands planning this trip, investing her heart and soul into creating cherished memories. And in a heartbeat, it was stripped away and handed to someone who hadn't earned it, a user hiding behind charm. By the time she reached home, a steely resolve filled her. They might have taken her off the trip, but she still controlled the reservations. If they thought they could treat her like this without consequences, they were in for a rude awakening. That night, the tears flowed until she felt completely empty, a hollow ache accompanying every breath. Around midnight, desperation sparked her phone call to Sarah, who answered, always a voice of reason, even at this hour. "I can't believe this is happening," Alexandra exclaimed, her heartbreak echoing in her friend Sarah's ear. Tears streamed down her face as she relayed the shocking betrayal. "My own father kicked me off a trip I paid for, and they expect me to just accept it. He actually said Natalie deserves to go more than I do." The sting of those words felt like daggers. All the sacrifices she'd made over the years, the times she financially supported them, and this was how they repaid her? "Alex, I love you, but you need to stop letting your family walk all over you," Sarah urged, her tone firm like steel. "They've been taking advantage of your kindness for too long. This is the line they should never cross. What can I do? The trip's already paid for. If I make a fuss, I'll just be the difficult one. Again. A heavy silence filled the air, but Sarah was not to be silenced. Don't let them get away with this. You planned the trip. You paid for it. Those reservations are under your name, right? Yeah, everything's booked through my travel agent. A flicker of hope ignited within Alexandra. Then you're still in control of those reservations, Sarah clarified. They can't just toss you aside without your say-so. A plan began to take shape in Alexandra's mind. You're right, she breathed. Sarah's encouragement washed over her like a light rain after a harsh drought. I won't cancel everything. That feels too harsh. But I can adjust things. Make it a bit different. The next morning, Alexandra picked up her phone and dialed Melissa, her travel agent, who had meticulously crafted every detail of her dream Dubai getaway. The weight of the situation still felt heavy, but bypassing the emotional turmoil, she explained the basics without diving into the more painful aspects. I need changes, Alexandra stated, her voice steady. We're keeping the trip, but it won't be what they expect. As she hung up the call, a resolve settled within her. Just like the fresh scent of rain-soaked earth, clarity washed over her. She may have been sidelined, but she was still the one in command. I need to make some changes to the Dubai booking, I said once the pleasantries were out of the way. Unfortunately, I will not be joining the trip, and we need to adjust the reservations accordingly. I am sorry to hear that. Alexandra Melissa replied, sounding genuinely disappointed for me. What kind of changes do you have in mind? First, I need to change the flight bookings. Instead of first class on Emirates, I would like to switch everyone to economy class. That is quite a downgrade, Melissa noted. Are you sure? Positive, I confirmed. Also, I need to cancel the reservation at the Burj Al Arab. Instead, please book 2 standard rooms that I paused to reference the list of hotels I had researched the night before the City Season Hotel. It is in Dara, I believe. That is on the other side of the city from all the attractions you had planned to visit, Melissa pointed out. And it is a 3-star hotel, not the luxury experience you were aiming for. That is fine, I assured her. I also need to cancel all the private tours and experiences I had booked. The desert dinner, the yacht cruise, the VIP access at the Burj Khalifa. All of it, Alexandra Melissa said cautiously. Alexandra stared at the confirmation email, the glowing screen flickering in the dim evening light. She could feel the energy of what could have been. A lavish family trip to Dubai, now stripped down to something entirely different. A faint hum from her phone interrupted her thoughts. One missed call from her mother. Was it congratulations, regret, or just another demand waiting in voicemail? Alexandra hesitated, her thumb hovering over the play button. What would her family say now? As she delved deeply into her family's vacation plans, her world tilted. She realized that her resignation from their trip meant family betrayal, a final blow to the validation she desperately sought. As her father, John, a strict, traditional military man, upheld his rigid expectations, she felt pushed to the edges. And her mother, Diane, the peacekeeper, seemed lost in the storm of her husband's decisions. What about Michael, her brother, ever the favored child who wallowed in indecision? With Natalie, his fiancée, on the rise, would they even notice if she stood her ground? With every detail, Alexandra felt the oppressive weight of exclusion lift. Change was in the air. She contacted Melissa, her travel agent, ready to transform her family's trip. I won't be joining you, she firmly stated. The trip was going from first-class extravagance to a 3-star hotel in the dingy outskirts of Dubai. Are you absolutely certain? Melissa's voice was cautious, almost sympathetic, but Alexandra found her resolve, transforming disappointment into boldness. Yes, and I want to know what I can do for myself now. A week in the Maldives with an overwater bungalow? Now that was a plan. As the details unfolded, her spirit ignited. Meanwhile, she realized she had every right to reclaim her narrative, to find her worth without the family's approval or presence. "Will you be rebooking your portion for later?" Melissa asked. "No," Alexandra replied. They finished processing the changes and a rush of exhilaration flooded Alexandra's veins. The luxurious Maldives awaited her. Still, the guilt bubbled just beneath the surface. Her family would arrive at the airport expecting one thing, only to face a different reality, a swift dose of justice. How would they react when they realized she was the architect of their unexpected fate? Would they see the strength in her defiance or continue their role as the family that silenced her? With a deep breath and heart racing, Alexandra clicked send, and in that one bold action, she stepped into her independence, ready to live a story where she was the hero. They were still going to Dubai. They would see the sights, experience a new country together. But it wouldn't be in the lavish style I had originally planned. No, the difference would go toward my own well-deserved vacation, a small compensation for the hurt they had caused me. As I hung up with Melissa, a weight lifted from my shoulders. For the first time in my life, I had stood up for myself against my family's unfair treatment. It wasn't a perfect solution. I knew there would be fallout when they discovered what I had done, but at that moment, I couldn't bring myself to care. They had made their choice, and now I had made mine. The day of the Dubai trip arrived. I hadn't spoken to any family members since that fateful evening when I was removed from the trip. My father, John, had called once, leaving a message about finalizing the financial arrangements for my portion of the trip cost. I hadn't returned his call. My mother, Diane, had texted a few bland messages, carefully avoiding the elephant in the room. Michael, my brother, hadn't reached out at all. I knew exactly when their flight was scheduled to depart. I imagined them arriving at the airport, dressed in their best clothes, expecting to be ushered into the first-class lounge for champagne and gourmet snacks before boarding. Instead, they would be directed to the economy check-in line, standing with the masses, their boarding passes showing seats at the back of the plane, rather than the spacious first-class pods I had originally booked. Sitting at my desk at work, I pretended to focus on a spreadsheet while actually watching the clock. My heart raced when my phone rang. It was my father. I contemplated not answering, but decided it was time to face the music. "Hello, Dad," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Alexandra, what the hell is going on?" he demanded, his voice tight with anger. I could almost hear the tension crackling through the phone. The rain outside tapped against the window, a rhythmic reminder of the storm brewing in my family. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my decision settle in. "Dad, I'm not going to Dubai," I replied, my voice steady. "What do you mean you're not going?" he shot back, disbelief lacing his words. "I mean, I'm taking my own trip. I deserve to be happy too." Silence hung in the air, thick and heavy. I could picture him, jaw clenched, struggling to process my defiance. "Alexandra, this isn't how we do things," he said, frustration boiling beneath the surface. "Maybe it's time for a change," I countered, my heart pounding. I could feel the tension shift, the air crackling with unspoken words. Would he understand? Would he see the strength in my choice? Or would he continue to see me as the daughter who needed to be controlled? "Your mother is worried," he said, his tone softening slightly. "Maybe she should be worried about how you treat me," I replied, my voice firm. The rain continued to fall, each drop echoing my resolve. I was ready to reclaim my narrative, to find my worth without their approval. "Alexandra," he started, but I cut him off. "I'm done being the family's afterthought. I'm choosing me." With that, I hung up, a rush of exhilaration flooding my veins. I was stepping into my independence, ready to live a story where I was the hero. As Alexandra stood at the airport, a storm brewed inside her. The sound of her father's booming voice echoed in her mind, dragging her into a childhood memory. The heavy thud of his military boots against the kitchen tiles, the click of his belt, a warning that would send shivers down her spine. She could almost taste the bacon sizzling, sense her mother's gentle hand resting on her shoulder, a silent plea caught between comfort and compliance. Amidst the morning chaos, the aroma of coffee and the brittle light filled the room. In that moment, she realized. Her voice was a whisper next to his thunder. What would you do if your family didn't see your worth? A betrayal had cut deep. They excluded her from the family trip, just weeks after she had poured her heart and soul into planning it. An opportunity to stand up had finally arrived. This was her chance to assert her self-worth. Fueling her resolve, she didn't back down. "You did what?" Her father's voice boomed, shattering the quiet of the airport. His face flushed, shock etched into his features. "How dare you change the arrangements without telling us?" The weight of his words smothered her, but she pushed through. "No mistake," she replied, steady, unyielding. The shock in their eyes only fueled her. "You decided to change who was going on this trip, and I decided to change what kind of trip it would be." Could he grasp the depth of her sacrifice? His indignation turned into desperation, challenging her with, "Is this about money?" "No, Dad, it's about respect." She could hear her mother's voice quivering in the background. "Sweetheart, please, this is our anniversary trip. Can't we work this out?" But Alexandra felt empowered. She had drawn a line. "Enjoy economy class. I hear the middle seats are particularly comfortable," she fired back, hanging up with her heart racing and satisfaction surging through her. The aftermath was a whirlwind of messages. Michael texted frantically from the less-than-glamorous hotel in Dubai. "What the hell, Alex? This hotel is barely 3 stars. How could you do this to us?" But Alexandra stood her ground. As her mother's voice quivered in tearful messages about canceled plans. "The desert dinner, the yacht cruise, everything special has been removed." Silence hung between them like a thick fog. Even Natalie joined the fray, crafting an Instagram story filled with thinly veiled complaints about their less-than-glamorous trip, while her expectation of being included overshadowed Alexandra's reality. But what did it all mean for Alexandra? Would this struggle lead her to that peace she desperately sought, or reveal deeper wounds that needed healing? As the tension hung in the air, she felt a flicker of hope. She wasn't a victim. She was the hero of her own story. Another post showed them in the regular observation deck line at the Burj Khalifa, which I knew would mean hours of waiting instead of the immediate access the VIP tickets would have provided. 3-hour wait just to get to the elevator. Someone did not plan this very well. Number exhausted number, not worth it. The most satisfying message came 4 days into their trip. A voicemail from my father that represented a significant shift in tone from his previous anger. "Alexandra," he began, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant. I think I owe you an apology. We did not realize the extent of what you had planned for this trip. The travel agency showed us the original itinerary when we tried to rebook some of the experiences. I had no idea you had invested so much into making this special." He paused, and I could hear him clearing his throat. "What we did was wrong. I see that now. Taking your place on this trip was unfair, especially after all you did to plan it. I should have considered your feelings more carefully. I hope when we return we can sit down and talk about this. I want to make things right." I saved that message, but still did not call back. I wanted them to sit with their actions for a while longer. The most unexpected development came in the form of a private message from my mother on the 5th day of their trip. It was longer and more heartfelt than anything she had communicated to me in years. "Alexandra, I need to tell you how sorry I am, not just for this trip situation, but for years of standing by while your father favored Michael. I've always been too afraid to stand up to him, too worried about rocking the boat. But seeing how hurt you are, how justifiably angry, has made me realize that my silence has been a form of betrayal, too. I want you to know that Michael and Natalie have been fighting constantly on this trip." Rain drummed steadily against the window as Alexandra's fingers trembled over her phone. Michael's message glowed back at her, a confession shrouded in the cool glow of the screen. His words, heavy with regret, echoed in her heart. He wished she were there instead of Natalie. In that moment, something profound shifted within Alexandra. Where once she felt the ache of exclusion, she now recognized the echo of validation within her family's regrets. Her absence had illuminated uncomfortable truths, forcing her family to confront what had always lingered beneath the surface. The days blended together as she read about their struggle, difficulties clashing against the glitzy backdrop of Dubai. Long waits, bitter arguments, and the stark reality of those lofty expectations crashing down. Each detail felt like a snap of reality breaking through their gilded facades. As if to heighten this turbulent family saga, her father reached out, voice wavering, saying, "Alexandra, I owe you an apology." The gravity of his words enveloped her, each statement layered with a sincerity that had been all too absent in their interactions. Moments passed, and she found herself holding her breath for her mother's words, a heartfelt message that plummeted deep into Alexandra's experience of neglect. Her mom admitted, "I've been afraid to stand up to your father." Tears welled in Alexandra's eyes, but not from sadness. It was validation flooding her heart. A light, however small, was breaking through years of silence. Then came the unexpected, Michael's brief but poignant acknowledgement. "You were right about Natalie." The details flowed in like rivulets of intrigue. He revealed Natalie's outbursts, the way her veneer cracked under pressure, exposing layers of discontent and selfishness. They weren't on the high of a dream vacation. They were struggling. Meanwhile, Alexandra embraced her solitude in the Maldives. Dreamlike waters glistened beneath her private bungalow. Hers was a world of tranquility, far removed from family turmoil. Breakfasts delivered by friendly staff, evenings under a blanket of stars, and meals bathed in the freshest seafood created a sharp contrast with her family's chaotic adventure. The silent call for validation had transformed into a powerful assertion of her self-worth. This wasn't just about a family trip gone wrong. It was about Alexandra reclaiming her narrative, leaning into her strength, and stepping into the light of recognition. In her absence, they learned the hard truths, and for the first time, Alexandra felt like the hero of her own story. I posted one single photo on social media during my trip, a snapshot of my feet resting on the deck railing, turquoise waves stretching beyond the horizon. The caption, "Sometimes you have to choose yourself." I knew my family would see it. I knew they would understand. And, for once, I didn't care what they thought about my choices. After a week in the Maldives, tanned and brimming with self-respect, I returned home, my heart still dancing in the sunlit waves. I found a flood of messages waiting for me. My family had been back from their Dubai trip for days, and now they were eager to talk. I hesitated, taking my time to process my feelings and figure out my next step. Finally, I agreed to meet my father for coffee at a quaint cafe halfway between our homes. When I arrived, I was struck by his uncharacteristic nervousness. There he was, a retired military man, standing as I walked in. A formal gesture that felt like an alien act in our relationship. "Alexandra," he began, pulling out my chair. "Thank you for meeting me." I nodded, my heart pounding, waiting for him to break the silence. He had requested this meeting. "I owe you an apology," he finally said, his voice thick with emotion. What we did with the Dubai trip was wrong. I see that now." "Why did you do it?" The question blazed in my mind, waiting for its moment. Finally, I blurted it out. "Why did you think it was okay to take something I worked so hard for and give it to someone else?" His heavy sigh filled the space between us, love and remorse clashing in its depths. "I could offer excuses about wanting to welcome Natalie into the family or thinking you'd understand because you're so capable and independent," he said, his gaze falling to his coffee cup, his hands tracing its rim. "But the truth is simpler and much harder to admit. I haven't been fair to you for a long time." At that moment, his next words sliced through me. "I have always expected more from you than from Michael. When you succeeded, I took it for granted." There it was, the validation I had long sought. Not quite sadness in my tears, but a flood of understanding. For so long, I'd felt like an outsider in my own family, lost amid the brimming expectations and unyielding traditions. Yet here, in this dim cafe, the light of recognition flickered. As he continued, revealing layers of regret and truth, I realized the family turmoil echoed beyond me. In their chaotic attempts to find peace, it was my solitude in the Maldives that had truly given me strength. A light began to pierce through years of suffocating silence, a beacon guiding me home. In their struggle, they learned the quintessential lesson. Sometimes the hero is not the one who stays, but the one who chooses to stand up for herself, even in solitude. As I sat across from my father, the air in the cafe was thick, charged with unspoken emotions. John, the strict military man with a voice that usually commanded attention, now trembled. "Alexandra," he started, the words slow and heavy. "I owe you an apology." I waited, heartbeat echoing in my ears. What we did with the Dubai trip was wrong. I see that now. My mind raced. Why did he think it was okay to take something I worked so hard for and give it to someone else? His sigh told me everything. "I wanted to welcome Natalie into the family," he mumbled, eyes glued to his coffee cup. "But the truth is, I haven't been fair to you for a long time." His next words shattered my facade. "I expected more from you than from Michael. I took your success for granted." In that dim cafe, a flood of understanding washed over me. I had felt like an outsider, lost in the shadows of expectations and tradition. But here, his raw vulnerability mixed with my pain, striking a chord I didn't know I needed. The tears I blinked back weren't just sorrow. They were years of pent-up frustration finally acknowledged. "Do you know how much it hurt when you said Natalie deserved to go instead of me?" I pressed, voice quivering. "That was my dream, my sacrifice." His gentle whisper, "I do now," was a blend of regret and resolve. He confessed he didn't expect my forgiveness right away, but he and Mom were committed to change, finally opening the door to years of accumulated hurts. We talked for over 2 hours. It wasn't a fairy tale resolution, but it felt significant, a foundation for something healthier. Meanwhile, chaos brewed with Michael and Natalie. Her true colors shone through during their Dubai trip, revealing materialism and entitlement amplified by disappointment. The constant fighting erupted into a scene at the Dubai Mall, leaving my mother in tears and my father fuming. 2 weeks later, Michael ended the engagement. Suddenly, my brother was also standing in the wreckage of unmet expectations. The family narrative, marred by competition, began to evolve. My father's voice broke the silence once more, but beneath his traditional facade lay a longing for connection and understanding. As I began to realize my worth, so too did John. After years of feeling sidelined, I was finally stepping into the light, reclaiming my place. In the tumult of family dynamics, I discovered the true essence of strength, not in conformity, but in the courage to stand up for myself, even if that meant standing alone. She demanded to keep the ring, threatened to tell everyone Michael was abusive, he was not, and finally resorted to calling me bizarrely, claiming that I owed her compensation for ruining her trip. I listened to her rant for precisely 1 minute before cutting her off. "Natalie, this conversation is over. Do not contact me or my family again." I blocked her number and social media accounts immediately afterward. My relationship with my mother improved more quickly than the one with my father. She reached out regularly, not just with superficial check-ins, but with genuine interest in my life and thoughts. She began standing up to my father on small issues, finding her voice after decades of deferring to him. It was a slow process, but I could see her making an effort to change patterns that had been established over 40 years of marriage. Michael and I had the most complicated road to recovery. He had been raised to expect preferential treatment, to believe his needs and wants should come before mine. Breaking that mindset was not easy for either of us. We had several false starts conversations that devolved into old accusations and defenses. But gradually, as he processed the lessons from his relationship with Natalie and saw the changes our parents were making, he began to shift his perspective. 6 months after the Dubai fiasco, he invited me to dinner and offered a genuine apology, not just for the trip, but for years of accepting advantages at my expense. "I never thanked you for helping with my rent last year," he admitted, "or for any of the other times you have bailed me out. I took it for granted that you would always be there to help without ever considering how I could support you in return. As for me, the entire experience was transformative. I learned to set clear boundaries with my family to assert my needs and expect them to be respected. I stopped automatically saying yes to requests for financial help and started evaluating each situation on its merits. Sometimes I still said yes, but it was a choice now, not a foregone conclusion. I also began to examine my own patterns of people-pleasing and seeking validation through sacrifice. With the help of a therapist, I explored why I had been so willing to spend enormous sums of money and effort to create perfect experiences for people who often showed little appreciation. I learned to value myself enough to expect reciprocity in my relationships, both within my family and beyond. The Dubai trip that never was became a turning point in our family dynamic. It forced issues that had simmered beneath the surface for decades to finally boil over, creating an opportunity for honest conversation and real change. It was painful, messy, and at times deeply hurtful, but ultimately necessary for all of us to grow. My father still occasionally slips into old patterns of favoring Michael or taking me for granted. My mother sometimes falls back into her peacekeeper role rather than standing firm. Michael has moments of entitlement that echo our childhood dynamic, and I still find myself tempted to overextend myself to earn their approval. But now we catch ourselves and each other. We talk about these patterns openly instead of pretending they do not exist. For my parents' 41st anniversary, we took a much more modest trip together a long weekend at a lakeside cabin a few hours from their home. We cooked meals together, played board games, and had conversations that would have been impossible a year earlier. It was not perfect, but it was authentic in a way the Dubai trip never could have been. If you are watching this and recognizing similar patterns in your own family, know that change is possible, but it requires courage, honesty, and often a catalyst that forces everyone to confront uncomfortable truths. Sometimes you have to make difficult choices to protect yourself and establish healthy boundaries. It does not mean you do not love your family. Alexandra stood in the living room, the harsh lamplight casting shadows on her face. She felt the tension in her jaw, a tremor in her voice as she finally spoke. "I deserve respect." Her father, John, with his strict military demeanor, shifted uncomfortably. Diane, her mother, blinked back tears, while Michael, her brother, clenched his fists, caught between loyalty and fear. For the first time, Alexandra's truth echoed in the silence, thick with heartbreak and release. Outside, rain tapped gently on the windows, the scent of wet earth filling the air, hinting at new beginnings. The family dynamic had shifted, forced to confront years of unspoken issues. It was painful, messy, but necessary. Now they gathered for a modest lakeside trip, cooking meals and playing games, sharing conversations that felt real. It wasn't perfect, but it was authentic. Change is possible, but it takes courage and honesty. Sometimes you must stand up for yourself to protect your heart. So, what about you? Have you ever had to confront family members who took your kindness for granted? How did you handle it? Share your stories in the comments. Remember, the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to say no.